Well, if I'm the Gates Foundation, and I came to the NIH and said, I don't want money. I want to give you money. I want to give you $100 billion.
Yeah.
But you can't spend more than 10% on overhead. Would the NIH turn it down?
I wouldn't turn it down, no. In fact, I think that Gates Foundation overhead rates are roughly, again, in that range, 10 to 15%.
The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation limits overhead to 15%, does it not?
That's what I understand, something like that.
Now, I want you to think in terms of the American people and the importance of medical research. What do you think is more important? And we have finite resources. Okay, and I support giving resources to NIH.
Welcome back, Patriots. You're watching American Mindset, where we dive deep into the issues that matter most to everyday Americans like you and me. Today, we're talking about something that's near and dear to my heart: accountability, fiscal responsibility, and making sure our hard-earned tax dollars are being spent on what really matters: improving the health and well-being of the American people. Now, I just watched a Senate hearing where Senator Kennedy grilled an NIH official. And let me tell you, folks, this was eye-opening. If you care about how your tax dollars are spent, stick around. This is going to get spicy. Let's watch the video.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Doctor, you don't look like Satan to me.
I hope not.
Some of my colleagues have accused you of everything but abandoning your children to wolves. Do you hate medical research?
I've devoted my life to medical research, Senator.
Do you hate the NIH?
I love the NIH. I think I said that in my Senate hearing, my earlier Senate hearing. I think it's the most important biomedical institution in the world.
This budget that we're debating today is the president's budget. When's the last time Congress took a president's budget and enacted it?
You know, the funny thing is, thanks to this process, I've got to talk with all of y'all.
When's the last time that happened?
I can't remember.
It's never happened in the history of ever happened.
I mean, everyone has strong opinions about what should happen, and Congress gets to have a say, and that's a good thing.
There's some changes that need to be made at the NIH, aren't there?
There are.
Okay. If I'm the president of a university, and I came to you, to NIH, and said, I need $10 million to research a cure for nephritis. And I took that $10 million and spent $5 million of it renovating the vice provost home. That would be morally repugnant, wouldn't it?
It would.
If I were a college president and I came to NIH and asked for $20 million to research a cure for dementia, and I took $5 million of that and used it to buy a yacht for my university, that would be morally repugnant, wouldn't it?
That would, and no, that's not.
And that's happened before, hasn't it?
That's not hypothetical, alas.
And there's been a lot of talk about the difference between direct costs, spending the money, for example, on researching cures for nephritis, and indirect costs, overhead. Harvard, for example, with a $53 billion endowment, spends 69% of its money from NIH on overhead, does it not?
I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but it's definitely in that range.
Yale spends 67.5% on overhead, does it not?
Again, roughly in that range, yes.
So all this money spent on overhead is money that's not being spent on medical research, is that right?
Well, it's for fixed costs of like lab space and things, but also sometimes for other things. So it's some of it's absolutely necessary.
Well, if I'm the Gates Foundation, and I came to the NIH and said, I don't want money. I want to give you money. I want to give you $100 billion.
Yeah.
But you can't spend more than 10% on overhead. Would the NIH turn it down?
I wouldn't turn it down, no. In fact, I think that Gates Foundation overhead rates are roughly, again, in that range, 10 to 15%.
The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation limits overhead to 15%, does it not?
That's what I understand, something like that.
Now, I want you to think in terms of the American people and the importance of medical research. What do you think is more important? And we have finite resources. Okay, and I support giving resources to NIH. I think NIH does breathtakingly innovative work. But if you ask American people, would you rather give money to research cerebrovascular disease, or would you rather give $142,000 to the Seattle Children's Hospital to study how to use telehealth to improve access to gender-affirming care? What do you think the American people would say?
Senator, the NIH should be a non-political organization, non-ideological, addressing the health needs of the American people.
But yet, the NIH also spent $120,000 in a grant to, quote, develop 3D avatars that help people work through gender dysphoria, end quote. Did it not?
It did.
And the NIH also spent $2,368,492, gave it to Brown University to study, quote, improving mental health among the LGBTQ community impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Did it not?
I think it did. Although I have to say that
Do you think that's more important than studying chronic lower respiratory disease?
I mean, I think we should address the real health needs of Americans, not divide Americans into we have to take into account the real differences in in the biology of people. But when we do that, we should do it in a way that really addresses their actual health needs. Not
I'm running out of time. What we have to do is spend the money on research.
We should, absolutely.
It's real simple.
I agree with you, Senator, 100%.
And some universities aren't, NIH is not calling them on it. Isn't it a fact that a study showed between 2017 and 2019, auditors found 137 critical trials funded with taxpayer money involving 41,000 kids, and they didn't even report the results? What happened to the money?
Senator, I think that researchers we support have an obligation to share their data publicly with the American people, no matter what the result.
Otherwise, it's wasted.
Yeah, agree.
All you want to do is fix NIH, don't you?
I do. I want to fix all those problems, Senator.
First of all, can we just acknowledge Senator Kennedy's sense of humor? The guy knows how to lighten the mood. But in all seriousness, he brought up some incredibly important points about the NIH, points that should have every American asking, where's my money going? And let me tell you something. When we're talking about taxpayer dollars, we have a right to demand answers. Let's break this down. Picture this. You're a hardworking American, paying your taxes, maybe skipping a vacation or two just to make ends meet. You assume your money is going toward things like finding cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, or heart disease. But instead, it's being spent on renovating a vice provost's home, buying yachts for universities. Folks, that's not just wrong. It's morally repugnant, as Senator Kennedy put it. And here's the kicker. This isn't hypothetical. This kind of misuse has actually happened. Now, if that doesn't make your blood boil, I don't know what will. These are taxpayer dollars, meant to save lives, not line the pockets of university administrators or fund their luxurious lifestyles. Let's talk about overhead costs. Did you know that universities like Harvard and Yale, institutions with billion-dollar endowments, are spending close to 70% of their NIH funding on overhead? That means only 30% is going to actual research. Meanwhile, private foundations like the Gates Foundation cap overhead costs at 10 to 15%. So why can't the NIH do the same? Here's the problem. When universities prioritize overhead over research, it's the American people who lose. We lose out on potential cures, better treatments, and real progress in medicine. And let's be honest, folks, if the Gates Foundation can hold themselves to a higher standard, why can't our government-funded institutions? Now, here's where things really took a turn. Senator Kennedy called out the NIH for spending money on politically charged projects that do little to address the real health crises facing Americans. For example, the NIH spent $142,000 to study how telehealth can improve access to gender-affirming care at Seattle Children's Hospital. They also gave $2.3 million to Brown University to study mental health in the LGBTQ community during the pandemic. Look, I'm not saying these issues don't matter to some people, but as Senator Kennedy pointed out, we have finite resources. If you ask the average American, would you rather spend that money on curing cerebrovascular disease or chronic respiratory illness, or on developing 3D gender dysphoria avatars? What do you think they'd say? I'll tell you what they'd say. Spend it on saving lives. That's what the NIH should be doing, focusing on the health crises that affect all Americans, not catering to niche political agendas. Here's another bombshell. Between 2017 and 2019, auditors found that 137 taxpayer-funded clinical trials involving 41,000 kids didn't even report their results. That's right. No results. No accountability. Just millions of dollars wasted. Now, let me ask you something. If you hired a contractor to build your house, and they didn't show you the finished product, would you keep paying them? Of course not. So why are we letting researchers get away with this? The American people deserve transparency. If you're taking taxpayer money, you owe us the results, good, bad, or ugly. Otherwise, it's just wasted money. And we've had enough of that. Now, I want to be clear. The NIH is capable of doing incredible work. It's one of the most important biomedical institutions in the world. But like Senator Kennedy said, it needs fixing. We need to prioritize research that addresses the biggest health challenges facing Americans. We need to cut down on wasteful spending and exorbitant overhead costs. And we need to hold researchers and institutions accountable for how they use taxpayer money. This isn't about being anti-science or anti-research. It's about being pro-American, pro-accountability, and pro-results. It's about making sure that every dollar we spend is a dollar spent wisely, because lives are on the line. At the end of the day, folks, this is about trust. The American people trust their government to use their money wisely. When that trust is broken, it's up to us to demand change. So let's keep the pressure on. Let's hold our leaders accountable. And let's make sure the NIH and every other government agency puts the needs of the American people first. Thanks for tuning in to American Mindset. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow patriots. Together, we can make a difference. God bless you, and God bless America.